Last week we did some very important transactions. We learned about payments, receipts, costing, and we did some practice or some practical transactions. And kudos to um, you guys. I've been seeing your feedbacks for those who are following back to back. I'm seeing your feedback. I remember this week, I dropped an assignment last week that you will do for me this week. So when we're done with this session, remember to go back to the group and get that task for this week. For this week, we're going to be looking at tax and we'll introduce assets. Hopefully by this class is supposed to round up by the end of this month. Well, I know we have the break coming on soon, but I don't know when December 25th will fall. I don't know if it's a weekend. I guess I will, let me check. Oh, 25th is on a weekday.
It's a weekend. It's a weekend.
It's a weekday.
25th is a
Yes.
weekday.
It's
Is a
a weekday
weekday.
again. Monday.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we won't be having, I don't think we'll be having any break. So we'll continue. This I remember why is extending this long is we had 2 weeks of no action, so we have to cover for that space. So today we'll do tax, especially VAT. We'll introduce assets. Next week we'll hopefully round up assets. Then we talk about financial statements. Then the third week we look at any other open items. But like I said, the essence of this is to make sure that when you pick an SAP, when you hear the word SAP and you hear the word FICO, you basically understand what is expected of you. And when you go out there for job opportunities, the essence of this training is to give you that hands-on exposure and experience so that it can also affect the way you talk or the way you speak in your sessions. We might not be able to learn everything. I think if you want to learn everything in SAP, you should have nothing less than a 6 months training that will span through. But for now, I don't have that kind of structure. But I'm looking at getting something like that soon, where we'll just stay for 6 months. That's a very long time. But as much as possible, after the sessions, uh, you will get a little bit. I mean, I'll show you how to learn other things within the SAP finance and controlling space. The information is, I'd share a lot of stuff with you. So the learning doesn't end. You're supposed to take it up from here. Haven't really understood the basics, at least, if for nothing else. Do you know how to use SAP? Yes. This is this and this and this and these are the things I can do with it. Then if you get to, well, if you're an accountant and it's a plus for you in terms of you get an accounting job and the company uses SAP, great. If you're coming into the consulting space and you're asked to probably do the BA part, okay, I think I had a call today from someone in the US. The guy has learned the configuration part, which is what you guys are learning. He said he has gone for about 3 interviews. And the problem, of course, US has a lot of jobs for SAP roles. The challenge is, he called me from LinkedIn. He said the challenge is having is on the project side. So they ask him questions about invoicing, posting, payments, banking, assets. He's fine. But when they come to projects, like you say you've been on a project before, because it's on your CV that you were part of a project, and they was telling me how they asked him questions about the project side, and man, he was really embarrassed. So he called me. Hopefully, that guy I added in the group, I think he's the person. So he's also planning to join the BA session. Even me, as I'm speaking to you, I've been on a 4-stage interview with Tata. Tata is one of the global SAP leaders. Yeah, I'm looking forward to also probably joining them. So this interview has actually spanned through 4 stages. And as you go higher in your interviews, you will start leaving the configuration space and you start talking about projects. You start talking about, how you manage stakeholders, how you managed requirement gathering sessions, how you did fit to standard workshops, how you were able to, some of the challenges you faced when you were interfacing with users, even talk about things like the deployment strategy, the data migration approach, all these stuff are things you will not hear how to post transaction, because the higher you go in interview phases, as you leave the functional space, as you start talking to those within the management cadre, they're looking for business processes, they're looking for implementation strategies, they're looking for stuff that has to do with your understanding of processes, procedures, strategies, stakeholder management, and all that. So that's the kind of interviews you. So like I was explaining to him, when you go for an interview, there are 3 phases, or three depending on who is interviewing you. There are 3 parts you will most likely meet. The functional part, which is what you're learning now, the project management part, which is going to be handled by the BA class, and the technical part, which is also what I told you, that there's a technical class that was happening that has ended also. So questions will most likely come within these 3 parts. So if you're interviewing with a functional consultant, they will ask you most likely functional questions, and that's like the first stage of the interview. When you pass the first, it depends on the company you're recruiting for. When you pass the first stage, you go to the next stage. You're most likely going to be talking about you most likely meet, they call it technical interview. So you most likely be talking with a technical team, somebody who understands things around data migration, functional specification, integration between modules, and all that. Then when you pass the technical stage, you go to the next stage, which is probably you're going to be discussing more with somebody high up in the management cadre, or the project manager, or the partner, depending on where you're having this discussion. Those kind of interviews would focus on your project management experience and exposure. And so a complete consultant is a consultant that has spanned through these 3 layers. And most times, I've told you guys how one of our classmates did the BA and the functional. The interview she went for was supposed to be functional, but when they were asking her questions about projects, about BA, she was answering more. I think they had a lot of more exposure and experience in that area, because she was not even an accountant, she was a pharmacist. And of course, they have a way of explaining things. They can explain processes because they do prescription of drugs and all that. They can. So she understood the project side a whole lot more. And somehow, the 2 roles were open. They said, "Oh, well, we have seen that you have good knowledge here than this area, because of course your background is not finance, so most likely you might not be able to deliver here as we expect. But we have a business analysis space that we think you can fit in," and that's how she found her way into the SAP business analysis role. Or you can be someone who understands the functional side because your background also supports that. So the idea is to prepare you for these 3 parts that you're actually going to be facing. Even me as a person, 2 interviews I've had, I got one of the offers. This one I think I'll get the feedback from them soon. It's the same thing, right? You're going to be asked questions across these 3 years. So I think some of us have gone through the BA, we're doing the functional. So don't make sure that you go back, when you're getting ready to get into the market, you go back to those project management things you learned, because they will ask you. They will ask you stuff about what you did when you were in a project. They will ask you those questions. Yeah, so I'm taking my time to explain this, because after this session, we're starting a BA session for SAP, basically talking about everything about the project phase that you need to understand and go through. Yeah, then we might be having the technical training immediately after that, but that's the plan. Yeah, so let's also, that will be starting 3rd week of January or 1st week of February, depending on some other factors also on my end. So that's to just give you the insight or the exposure into what the environment is all about. Okay, so going back to what we have today, today we are going to look at taxes. Taxes is one of the very important config we're going to be doing. Why? Because, for example, most of the invoices that we would have, they might ask you to, this tab here called calculate tax. You might be asked some questions which I'm going to send to you. Some of the questions we have, I don't think I have anyone on tax, but you can just apply them. But I'll give you some of the restrictions it has, because we might basically, the configuration is country specific. So since we're all in the same country, we might not be doing all the configs at the same time. If not, we'll just mess up the system. So I'm going to do the config. You will take note of that. Then I'm going to show you how you're going to tie your company code to the config so that you can be able to see the tax that I have done, basically.
Kelly, I beg, my hand is up.
Okay, please.
Please, before we go in, no verse, don't be angry, I beg. I just wanted you to just touch base on just 2 things for me. I don't know of other people. I just want to see how you treat it. Just 2 transactions. Just 2 simple transactions I just want you to treat. It's confused. It's giving me an issue, but I just want to see how you go about it. It's very simple. On our practice question that you gave us, the one that has to do with May 20, that May 20 said cash sales 150,000, purchase purchase 70,000 made by check. It has nothing to it does not have a cash sales from sales to Julius Berger.
So when it doesn't have a personal account, what do you do?
That is the treatment I want you to do.
Journal, you post journals. If it doesn't have a personal account, you're just hitting the 2 ledgers, debit and credit, cash and sales. Finish. So go to the FP50, which you already know, just the way you post expense. But the difference is that you select the cash account and sales account. There is no, what has this company code? There's no issues there. So once there is no personal account, I've been saying it. Once there is no personal account, please use donor, because all you need to hit is the ledgers, debit, cash, credit, sales. That's the only thing you do. This is the only thing you do. Debit, cash, credit, sales. That's all. If it's purchase, debit, purchase, credit, the expense.
Okay.
So it's simple. If you see a transaction, there is no Mr. A or Mr. B that is not tied to any personal account. Just what the intention is that you go and hit the ledgers.
Okay. You know what I was saying was I was like, oh, we don't have anything we are selling. So how am I reducing sale? Won't it be negative? That is how I was just looking at it anyway. You
Ah, you
understand?
be okay.
So I was like, we are not selling anything, and the sales was not tied to a particular item. So I
Okay.
was like, the sales will end up being in negative.
Sales is not in negative. Sales is always credit, and it's always the idea of sales is income. Income is always credited. So the stuff is, don't even worry yourself about. Don't think about it so much. Just focus on the question. If the question says these two GLs will be affected and you have checked, there is no personal account,
There's
that
no personal accounts. You treat it this
just
way.
journal. That's all.
All right, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll proceed. Yeah.
Okay, so for tax, the essence of tax is to
Which bag are you using? Washed it. Okay.
the essence of tax is basically to so scenarios where normally when you go to procure, when you go to buy things, let's say you go to an eatery, there is always this VAT. There's one popular tax they call VAT that is always assigned to an invoice that normally should be remitted to the government. So government has come up with a policy that when you're when you're um, when you're selling goods or services, it's a regulation that you need to withhold. You need to put an extra charge on that thing you're selling, and that charge is called value added tax. And although the seller will put that, let's say for example, uh, you're selling something for 1,000 and the VAT is 7.5%. You put the VAT amount. So let me just get my Excel sheet so it looks a little bit clear. Sorry, it's taking a lot of time. So when it comes, I'm just going to explain. So there is, let's say you have 1,000 and the government has said before you invoice, charge VAT of, let's say, 7.5%, depending on the country, you add the 7.5%, then you have the total that the customer is supposed to be paying. That value, that VAT needs to have a GL so that at the end of the month, you can know the value of VAT that you have accumulated. And when you pay that money, remit that money to the government, you also have to close that VAT GL. So let me just show a very brief scenario of that. Okay. While this is coming, we'll go to for you to configure VAT, you go to your SPRO, go to reference IMG, then go to financial accounting, go to accounts receivables, and no, go to financial accounting global settings. Then you will see tax on sales or purchases. So you click there. So you have three configurations you need to go through for you to be able to complete your VAT. The first is basic settings. So you go to basic settings. In your basic settings, there the first step here is to check the calculation procedure. When you double click on that, then you check define procedures. Yeah, so these are the existing tax procedures that are already in the system, different tax for different countries. Yeah. So we can create our own, but if we create our own, because we're using one server, it's going to cause a lot of confusion because we are using one country. So it means that if I finish creating and let's say Kelechi wants to create, she will go and create in US and remove the one I've created. If Mr. Innocent wants to create, he will create and remove the one Kelechi created and all that. So it's going to just mess things up. So I'm going to show you how to create. Then we're going to use one. So all you need to do is to tie your company code to that one. Yeah. But the essence is you're going to learn how to create it if you were to create it yourself. But because of the purpose of this training, we're going to be sticking to one. Then you will just assign your company code to that one. But I will create from scratch. So we already have tax US as a procedure. So I can create by copying the structure of this US because of course I'm using my country is the US. So I can click on copy here. Then I'll change this to my company code. Tax US underscore my company code is AA1. AAA1. AA1. Click on enter. Then copy all. So 22 item was copied. Say okay. Then I have tax AA1 as my tax calculation procedure. So I select it and go to control data. Then I'll see the procedure. These are like the calculation control data. Yeah. These are well, basically settings that are in the US, but I have to create the one that will be okay for me because I've checked here. These are, I think we have one here, but so for once you create, if you're going to be creating, but like I've said, let's just stick to the instructions of this class so that we don't have multiple taxes that nobody can use. So what I'll do here is to click. This is my own. These are some of the things I copied from the US. So I can just do. Let me copy just to select this. This is the base, so it's important. Then select any of these two, which we may use. Then click on copy. So select the base, then select these two as it's. Let me see the condition type here. That should be picking from the base. Okay. Okay. So just select this, or we can just click on new. Anyone is fine. If I click on copy as, it will pick the three that I've selected. So the base is fine. The base is 100. I'm going to change the step. Step is just the calculation step. And put a step that is not on the list. So I'll put 600 because 600 is not existing anywhere, and 610. Yeah, and here is the condition type. What the system here is saying that where is this step going to be picking the base? It is going to picking the tax from. So I want it to pick from the base, which is this 100 here. So for this, my calculation type, let them pick from the base. So 600 should pick the base because if I want to tax, I have to have the gross amount. So base is like the gross amount that I want to apply this tax on. So let's say since my Excel is on, so let's say for example, I have an invoice. The amount of that invoice is is $1,000, and this $1,000 is what is called the base. And I have one of the tax I call VAT, and this VAT is output. And this VAT is output VAT. And we have two types of VAT. The other one is called the input VAT. So I'll just explain these VATs. The input VAT. And let's assume that the rate for this tax is the output, let's say is 7.5%. Then the input is, let's say, 5%, or 5%, or 7.5 too. Okay. Now, what this means, the question is what is output and what is input VAT? So from the word out, it means that an invoice is leaving your company to the customer. The word in means that an invoice is coming to your company from a supplier. So that's what we call input VAT and output VAT. So output VAT is related to invoices you are sending out to customer, and input VAT represents invoices that is coming to your company code from a supplier. So let's say, for example, this 1,000 is as a result of sales from customer. Yeah. So what we will do is, so let's say this is sales. Let's say this 1,000 sales invoice from customer. Yeah. So if the sales invoice from customer, which of these VATs are we going to be applying to this invoice? Input or output? Hello, guys.
So, are you saying that the tax for this sales invoice from customer,
Yeah, which tax will apply, input or output?
I think is output because
Why?
it's going out.
So when you have invoice that is going out to a cost that's going out of your company to a customer, the tax that applies is output VAT, output tax. When you have invoices that is coming into your company from a supplier, you apply the input VAT. The difference between the output and input VAT is what your VAT payable. So output VAT minus input VAT, you go to that's a VAT you pay to the government. That's a VAT that is liable for you to pay. So what accountants do at the end of the month is that they file, when we say you file for your VAT, it means that you have done the input VAT minus the output VAT, and you're trying to tell the government that this is what I'm owing you from the analysis I've done. That's what accountants do every month when they say they are filing for VAT. Okay, so we'll just do that scenario. Let me do this so that you can understand it also better. So let's say again, there was an invoice that came in from, we'll just do the two scenarios. There was an invoice that came in from a supplier. So we're asked to pay VAT for that purchase. So let's assume that this money was 500. Okay, so for you to know the total invoice amount, you will do, of course, this. First of all, to know the amount of VAT, say this times this. Then, of course, the total invoice amount is the total of this plus this. So basically what you're going to be paying, what you're going to be charging the customer is 17. So this is total invoice amount. So this is what you send to the customer. So the customer is going to be paying you 1075. At the end of the month, remember this 75 is not your money. You're supposed to remit this 75 because you have received it is part of your funds. Yeah, if the customer is paying you, he's paying you plus the $75 dollars. But that $75 is not your own. You're supposed to now remit that $75 back to the government. And that's where, if you do not, then the government can, sue you, and you're going to pay a lot of damages for that. Also, let's say, for example, you had an input tax of this times this, and the total invoice for this transaction is this.
I'm sorry, Kelechi, I don't know. I'm a bit confused.
I
So,
know.
this sales invoice from customer, I don't know. I'm interpreting it to mean that probably the company bought something and then they are presenting the invoice to the company.
Which one?
The first example.
No, just put yourself as a company. If not, you won't get it. Put yourself as a company. Just assume you are the company and you have a customer.
Yes. Okay. So, for example, now let's say I bought the way I'm interpreting
You're
it,
selling,
the
not
way it's
buying. You're
looking like
selling. You're selling.
I'm selling.
Yeah, customer means you're selling to the customer.
Okay.
So output is selling. So let's say you own a pharmacy and your company code owns a pharmacy. A customer comes and the customer wants to buy drugs. When you are selling to the customer, you will add VAT and the customer will pay you plus the VAT. That's the idea. So you have to make yourself the company and have a customer. The same thing happens for input VAT. When you're purchasing from a vendor, you're going to replenish your stock in your pharmacy, and you normally buy these drugs from suppliers. When you're buying, most times the suppliers will charge you VAT. So at the end of the month, the difference between the VAT you charge your customers and the VAT your suppliers charge you is what you have to make that difference so that you can have what we call your VAT payable to the government. So for example, if you see this transaction, the VAT payable is 75 minus 37.5. So this is the VAT that is payable to the government. But the only difference that the system does all this, the calculation behind the scene. But the essence of this training is how do we configure this guy so that immediately when we are entering an invoice in SAP, we can call out this guy so that it will apply to the invoice. For example, if we're creating invoice, I'm not done with this. If we're creating invoice, currently what we're doing, we are not adding VAT to what we're doing. So the system is not recognizing any VAT, but once we're done, we should be able to add VAT. to our transactions, and this is what the customer is supposed to pay. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so
Thank you.
so the base now is this guy. The base is this 1,000, and that's what we're trying to configure here. This is the base 1,000. 600 is going to be the output, this guy. So we can just put it here. Base is 1,000. I think that's what is here. Yeah, 100 rather. Base is 100. Output is 600. Is as per SAP. Then input VAT is 610. So this is what we're trying to configure. We already have the base, and we're telling the system that for these two guys to calculate